queer theory is very, very upfront about being aggressive in terms of the deconstruction of norms and attacking the very foundation of certain societal perspectives.
I think that the question is then how do we solve the problem? And as Christians, we need to base what we think is right and wrong on the nature and character of God, not on the shifting sand of culture. And so,
Right.
you know, all these things kind of trickle down from one another. But I'd love for you to talk, maybe Neil, you can start on your chapter on queer theory. You identify 4 core ideas, and you show us why we should really be concerned about these 4 core ideas promoted by queer theory. Can you give us a little picture of what those are?
Sure. So yeah, like these are themes within the queer theory literature you find everywhere. One of the things that you find if you read the literature is the first few pages of the book will say it's impossible to find queer theory. It defies definition. And they'll go on for 300 pages. So wait a minute, how can you not define this term and yet talk about it for 300 pages? So you have to kind of figure out, well, what are these key themes? And they are there. They're not non-existent. But it's funny that they kind of put this hide the ball in terms of what they actually believe. But the 4 ideas I've identified, or we identified in the book, is 1, the bifurcation of sex versus gender. They're different things. Okay, so sex is biological. Gender is a social role you play. And how they parse that out differs, you know, for Judith Butler versus another, like a feminist might disagree. But basically, they all agree that sex and gender are different. They think that sex is gender. Gender is a complex category. It's not just, there's just not just 1 or 2 genders. There's a plethora of genders. They involve lots of different phenomena like social roles, expectations, norms. So it's not just one thing, it's a whole constellation of things. The third idea is that gender is intersectional. So a Black woman and a white woman and an Asian woman and a disabled woman will have their genders will be affected by their other identities. So a Black woman is gendered differently than a white woman is. And so we can't assume, interestingly, they would say, you can't assume solidarity between 2 women based on their gender alone, because a white woman and a Black woman will have race distinguishing how they're gendered. And then finally, the last idea is the deconstruction of all norms. So it's not just gender itself that queer theorists want to deconstruct and show it's all a social construct. It's not really real. They will also deconstruct other things like age limitations on sex. And for theology, we quote from several books on queer theology. They deconstruct notions of sin, salvation, the church, the binary between good and evil even. They'll say these are all social constructs and they're all complicated. They always want to destabilize these binaries between male and female, Black and white, good and evil. So it's all very complicated. And when you can see, like you said, it's a universal asset. When you start questioning whether are there any absolutes at all, that's going to eat away at your confidence in really everything.
Yeah.
So those are the 4 core ideas.
Yeah, that's good. Anything you want to add to that, Pat?
Well, I mean, that's Neil's exactly right. I think that, like we've already underscored, Neil and I are not just having a certain reading, a certain narrative that we're pulling out in terms of the scholarship that we're looking at. The things that we're talking about here, the scholarship is very overt about. And so this is not hidden somewhere that we've somehow figured out what queer theory is really trying to say. No, it's not that way at all. Queer theory is very, very upfront about being aggressive in terms of the deconstruction of norms and attacking the very foundation of certain societal perspectives. And again, Neil and I argue that certain societal perspectives that are norms need to be changed and are terrible. Think about living in 1955 in the U.S. with Jim Crow being prominent. That norms are established all over the place that are evil and need to be totally deconstructed and absolutely jettisoned. Okay. But it's not sufficient. It's not good enough to just say that we need to attack all norms. We've got to get underneath those norms and determine, well, what is the epistemological foundation of these norms? And is this foundation good, true, and right? And then when that is, we need to praise God that something has become a norm that ascends from that. Okay. And so we don't need to deconstruct that. And,
Right.
and something that you said, Alisa, just a minute ago, which is very, very important. You were talking about the fact that, well, what is the ultimate destination of some of these ideas? And when that ultimate destination is considered, wow, that's really off. That's really not good. And you touched on something very important. The way to know whether how you're getting somewhere is incorrect is often by the destination that you will
Yeah.
land
Yeah.
if you extrapolate it out to its full degree. And so that is a good method to know whether we should go, whoa, wait a minute. If these ideas that we're talking about are actually run their course to their farthest conclusion that they would concur with, and then that is a horrible place to be, well, that is a good indicator that the pathway itself is fraught and corrupted with bad ideas and perspectives and claims and presuppositions, and that's what needs to be deconstructed. That's a good deconstruction project. And so I just wanted to mention that, because when you reference that, I often in teaching apologetics in certain contexts, I remind people of the very thing that you stated, and then also what I just stated here in terms of this helps us identify whether these premises and presuppositions are flawed in and of themselves because of look where this is headed.